Welcome to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer, a full show of tips and practical strategies to repair, rebuild, and strengthen your relationship. If you are currently stuck, wondering if your marriage can be saved, or you know you want to save it but don't know how to go about changing it, this show is for you. To book your free marriage strategy session with Nicola, get the free marriage ebook or donate. If you are enjoying the show and want to help keep it flowing, visit www.nicolabeer.com.
Hi and welcome. I'm really excited about this episode today. I'm going to be talking about the hunger that drives addiction and some steps you can take if you have a habit at the moment that is compulsive, you're trying to stop, you're struggling to stop, or someone you love, someone you really care about is doing a repetitive habit that you know isn't serving them or is harming your relationship with them, and they seem unable to change or to want to change or to stop. So in all of my experience doing addiction treatment services, I have had numerous clients who have contacted me specifically for getting off a chemical, whether that's alcohol, drugs, medication, emotional eating, and then there's also sex addiction, gaming addiction, shopping addiction, a whole host of things. A lot of people believe that when it comes to the drugs, the alcohol, those kind of things, that all you need to do is to stop the physical addiction and then it will go. And of course, addictions are so much more complicated than that. Often the biggest struggle with stopping addictions is the benefits that the person gets or that they used to get when they first started. There's often a temporary relief from pain, reality. It can be a way to reward, to block out loneliness, guilt, disappointment, feelings of failure and shame. And sometimes people say, look, I would do it because I just need to feel good and I enjoy it. It helps me put a pause on my life. I numb out. So I'm going to talk today about the hunger that drives addictions and compulsive behaviours, as well as what you can do if you are struggling yourself or you, as I mentioned, are in a relationship with someone that is. So I recently had a client called Chris, and he booked a session with me after searching for depression support. And within the first few minutes of our conversation, Chris admitted to drinking excessively to the point where he couldn't remember where he was or who he was with, and had recently started experimenting with different drugs. And he came to me because he got so drunk and ended up at a hotel with another lady and lost his phone, lost his keys. I think he feels that he was obviously taken advantage of, and his relationship was on the brink. And I wanted to explore with Chris, what is going on? What is leading to this excessiveness? And often it's limiting beliefs that people have about themselves. Chris said to me at the beginning, no, Nicola, I don't drink because of any problems. I do it because I enjoy it. And I said, yeah, sure, of course you do. So what do you enjoy about it? And he thought about it for a moment and he said, feeling free, my mind goes blank, I laugh and smile, I kind of feel numb to, it helps me to be more sociable, I talk more easily as I feel more confident. So I said, okay, that's great. So you do it because you feel confident, free, have a calm mind, you're smiling and laughing more. And it's easier to have conversations with people, right? Yes, Nicola. Fantastic. So in order to drink less or to stop or to be more balanced, we have to find a way to get all of those things for you without substances. And he said, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that. So that was the next step, looking at the emotions and his negative thinking, his critical self-judgments about himself that had to be cleared, because that was blocking him from feeling happy. A belief that I need alcohol to be sociable. I'm not interesting enough. without it. That had to go. His repressed anger towards himself had to go. His feelings of shame and guilt from the past had to go. He needed and wanted to feel more attractive in himself. That had to change. It turned out that Chris was really feeling unhappy because he felt that he was failing in his life. His wife earned more than him, and it bothered him. He was annoyed at himself still for getting into debt after college, using credit cards. And he couldn't help but sort of punishing himself but with these thoughts by saying, look, I should be much further ahead if I wasn't such an idiot after I finished college. He also didn't like the way he looked. He was going bald and he was getting bigger, but he never felt motivated enough to dedicate time for exercise and eating well because he didn't like himself. So it became that vicious cycle. And this was all affecting his confidence. And he had a belief that I'm overlooked. He felt overlooked and unappreciated in his relationship. He felt overlooked and unappreciated in his work. He felt overlooked with his friends. And that's why when he drank, he became the clown of the group to get people to like him. Because he had all of these areas where he didn't feel good enough, this core belief that he's overlooked had to be changed, because whatever you tell your mind, that becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, because you adopt that as, okay, this is true, I'm always overlooked, for example. Then you project that out there. You look for examples with those kind of glasses of I'm overlooked, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it is. And then it gets reflected back to you. And you're just noticing that because you're looking at the world through that lens, if that makes sense. So we needed to change that. We needed to reboost his confidence, which I did with a meditation on ultimate confidence. And we also got into actions, because actions build confidence, and so does changing the negative stories in our heads to positive. So that was when we decided to do like my 3-day intensive breakthrough, because the first step is looking at what are the core emotions that someone's holding on to, what are all the beliefs that they have about themselves, like I'm lazy, I'm out of control, I'm stuck, it's too late, I'll never get the job, relationship, whatever it is I want, good things don't happen to me, whatever it is. So we need to release that, release the emotions like anger, sadness, hurt, fear, guilt, rage that create that low self-esteem, and then clear that, and then focus on, right, who do you want to be? What will make you feel more confident? Getting out of your comfort zone. I say to him, look, let's have a test. Go out, have an amazing night out, and just drink Diet Coke or water or whatever. Just go and see if you can do it. And normally people come back and go, yeah, it was amazing. I had such a good time, I didn't even need it. Often just that story, when we change that story and then we take action, we overcome that. When I was doing my dancing classes in the evening, I had a belief before, like there's no way I can need a dance class after 2 in the afternoon. I'm not an evening exerciser, I convinced myself of that. And so to challenge myself, I booked them at 8 p.m. for quite a few weeks. I don't know if you were in that Facebook group then. And it was actually fine. It was just getting over it. And of course I planned my meals to make sure that I had the energy. And so we can overcome anything. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I would like to change. Like, do some positive things to increase your inner talk. And then take some outside actions to grow your confidence. Confidence grows by pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. Because people will create the same reality if you don't change the deeper level thinking and release the emotions. It's unhealthy for us to hold on to these emotions in the body. It can sometimes create pain and aches and illnesses and stress. So we need to be able to release them. And then it's really important to look at lifestyle, work situations, finances, relationships. sleep, diet, support network, or lack of, support. Looking at other causes, other things that influence it, rather than just saying, okay, you have a problem with this substance, therefore let's just do a plan of you to get off that one substance, with no outside factors looked at. Often when people come to me for alcohol addiction, hypnotherapy, emotional eating hypnotherapy, depression hypnotherapy, anxiety hypnotherapy, I'm like, absolutely, it works. And we need to look at the rest of your life, because if we're telling your mind, to be calm, to release these things, and you're doing actions that recreate it, it's not going to be very effective, because you need to do both. You need to reprogram your mind to support you in where you want to go. And you also need to be taking positive actions and behavioural changes to get the lasting results. It's not just a case of stop this and be free, which is why so many people struggle with willpower alone. They say to themselves, right, I'm going to stop this habit, and they don't have a positive replacement. They haven't looked at what benefits that was giving them and found other ways to get those benefits. So your mind's going to be like, well, I need those benefits, so it will just talk you back into it. Ben and Judy used to fight over Ben's nights out for many years pre-COVID. Ben was in sales and he had to drink and eat out most days of the week because he was entertaining clients and motivating his sales team. And that's why he said to his wife that it was impossible to lose weight and to come home before midnight, because this is what he had to do to make good money, and she enjoyed the money, so she just needed to accept it. And Judy really hoped that with COVID that his travel and entertainment would stop so they could have more time to rebuild their relationship and connect. She thought it would be a perfect time to have quality family and romantic times together. Sadly, this didn't happen. Ben was super stressed and worried about losing his job. The declining sales in the business made him feel like a failure, and he felt panic almost every day. So rather than spend more time with his family, he did the opposite. He would get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, cycle for a few hours, then start work, and then be on the beers around 4 o'clock, drinking at his desk at home, and then he'd be in bed for 8 after dinner. And he never missed a day of cycling, he never missed a day of drinking. He became, what he said, is obsessed by it. And looking beneath the surface, there are quite a few things going on that would need to change to help them break free from these habits. First of all, he needed to get a better way to manage stress and that anxiety, panic, and not let things overwhelm him. Second, he needed to have some friends. He'd lost touch with his friend circle way back, believing that he didn't have time for friends, and he would entertain clients instead of having what he called real friendships. So he felt alone and lost. And when we talked through his relationships and friendships, he actually had a belief that I always disappoint people, so may as well not bother. He felt like he was bad at relationships. And all of his socialising had been for work purposes. It was always money-driven, purpose-driven, than a real connection with people that he'd love to hang out with. And he knew that his clients liked him because he was always footing the bill. So for him, it didn't feel genuine. And he would always become this more funny, entertaining version of him when drinking. And because he wasn't like that, normally he felt if people knew the real me, they wouldn't like me. He described himself as awkward and as not interesting. Over the years, he had lost himself and he had come to not like himself. And this had a massive impact on his sex drive, which was the reason why he had blocked out his wife for so many years. Fear of her expectation of sex. Fear of hearing more criticism when he already felt pretty low. Fear of hearing her upset and feeling more like a failure. And he cared so much for her, he couldn't express it. His way of coping was shutting her out. And he wouldn't have come to me for support because he didn't believe in getting help. It was only when his wife Judy said, look, I've had enough, sort it out or that's it. She felt lonely and angry and sad and thinking like, what's the point in being married? And that's when Ben took responsibility, which he hadn't done for many years. He took action. He said, no, we don't need marriage counselling. I need to change. And that's when he decided to do my breakthrough program. And we got rid of all these self-sabotaging thoughts. So do you have any self-sabotaging thoughts? What are they? What is the opposite that you would like to think and believe about yourself? How are they not true? Where do they come from? Look at them to get rid of them. We then increased his confidence by the actions he's going to take and to do to change, by a guided meditation, and then covered the steps to rebuild the intimacy and connection with his wife. Just him taking that responsibility and owning up to his wife and saying, yeah, you're right, was enough to warm her back up to him. And she said, okay, I'll give you that chance because I know this is such a big deal for you working with someone. So, as I've kind of mentioned, it really is the situations or environments around us that heavily influence our lifestyle choices. And this includes the development of relying on substances to keep going. And there is something so interesting that I recently read from Chasing the Scream. It was actually a book written many years ago by Johann Hari. And I'd like to share it with you to illustrate this point because I found it fascinating. And I really hope that you do too. So rats have been used for experimentation for years. And in the 1960s, experimental psychologists decided to carry out drug addiction experiments on rats using Skinner boxes. Skinner boxes were essentially rat prisons, where food was administered to them at a tap by a level by the rat themselves. So the rats could tap this and then get the drug through water. So for the drug addiction experiments, the level would administer the shot of a drug each time it was pressed. And the results found that the rats were becoming highly addicted to morphine as they continuously pressed the level for their shot. And this is where it gets interesting. Psychologist Bruce K. Alexander didn't agree with the way the study was conducted. He believed that if you put humans into solitary confinement, like the rats were in these Skinner boxes, then you're bound to see unusual or repetitive behaviours. And this can't be a representation of what happens in the outside world, where there are many external factors that contribute to a human taking drugs. He wondered, what if the experiment was run differently? So with a few of his colleagues, he built 2 sets of homes for laboratory rats. In the first home, they lived as they had in their original experiment, in solitary confinement, isolated except for their fix. Then he built a second home, a paradise for rats. Within its plywood walls, it contained everything a rat could want, where there were wheels and colour balls and the best food and other rats to hang out with and have sex with. He called it Rat Park. In these experiments, both sets of rats had access to a pair of drinking bottles. The first bottle contained only water. The other bottle contained morphine, an opiate that rats process in a similar way to humans, and that behaves just like heroin when it enters the brain. And at the end of each day, Bruce or a member of his team would weigh the bottles to see how much the rats had chosen to take opiates and how much they had chosen to stay sober. When they discovered the results, it was quite startling. It turned out that the rats in the isolated cages used up to 25 milligrams of morphine a day, as in the earlier experiments, but the rats in happy cages used hardly any morphine at all, less than 5 milligrams. These guys in Rat Park, he said, have a complete total 24-hour supply of morphine. Bruce said they don't use it. They don't kill themselves. They don't choose to spend their lives just taking that drug. They do other things. So the old experiments were, it seemed, wrong. It isn't the drug that causes harmful behaviour. It's the environment. An isolated rat will always become a junkie. A rat with a good life almost never will. no matter how many drugs you make available to him. As Bruce put it, it was realizing that addiction isn't a disease. Addiction is an adaptation. It's not you, it's the cage you live in. And that can be the external factors, and it can also be, I believe, that cage within, the cage of the thoughts and the emotions that are repressed or on repeat. Bruce and his colleagues kept tweaking the experiment to see just how much your environment shapes your chemical compulsions. He took a set of rats and made them drink the morphine solution for 57 days in their cage alone. If drugs can hijack your brain, that will definitely do it. Then he put these junkies into Rat Park. Would they carry on using compulsively, even when their environment improved? Had the drug taken them over? In Rat Park, the junkie rats seemed to have some twitches of withdrawal, but quite quickly they stopped drinking the morphine. A happy social environment, it seemed, freed them from their addiction. In Rat Park, Bruce writes, "Nothing that we tried instilled a strong appetite for morphine or produced anything that looked to us like addiction." Interesting, right? Unfortunately, a senior member of Bruce Alexander's university told him to cease the studies because they found them embarrassing. So how realistic is this for human beings? Well, interestingly, during the Vietnam War, according to the Archives of General Psychiatry report, 20% of American troops were taking heroin whilst they were stationed in Vietnam. So naturally people were worried that when these troops returned to America, that there would be a huge increase in the number of heroin addicts. Well, what exactly happened? According to this in-depth study on American troops, the findings were shocking. 95% of the troops who had taken heroin whilst at war and then returned home gave up heroin relatively easy. They didn't experience any withdrawal symptoms and they didn't need any rehab to recover. 95%. So taking the above into consideration and looking at cases where even the most famous people harm themselves through drug and alcohol abuse, emotional eating and more, it's clear to see that addictions go much deeper than just developing a need for a substance. In most cases, substances are used to hide deep-rooted issues, numb pain, or fill a void. And when you understand this point, you realise that people who are turning to drugs, alcohol, food addiction, whatever it is, need care and support rather than being labelled an addict and punished. For anyone working in the field of addiction, it's crucial to remember that people are not their behaviour and that all behaviours can be changed. I believe that you should never work with somebody if you don't believe that they can get the results that they want. Because as a coach, as a therapist, as a person that helps people, you need to believe this person is going to be able to change, because if you don't believe in it, they're not going to believe that they can change. And all behaviours can be changed. People change behaviours all the time. In fact, in my Facebook group, I did a question on this a few days ago where I asked people who has successfully quit an addiction relatively easy. And so many people were saying, yeah, I just decided that I had enough. Yeah, one lady said, I prayed. Another person said, I just created a new habit. Like, it's totally possible to change things with the right motivation, clearing anything that is triggering it, and finding new ways to get the benefits that you used to get from the substance or whatever the pattern is. And I believe that anyone given the right circumstances can become an addict. In fact, a lot of Dr. Gabor Mate's work points that childhood trauma is the strongest link to addiction. It sets conditions early on for people, and if not healed and worked through, they have a far higher probability to use substances to cope in their adult life. The catch-22 with addiction is that addiction keeps people isolated in most circumstances. People will use their substance or get into their addiction, they'll hide it, they'll get involved with it, often it's a lonely thing, and therefore the addiction ends up preventing them from getting the real human connection and love that they need, and it becomes this vicious cycle. In a lot of cases, people that I've worked with, there's always some underlying beliefs about themselves that are, or discomfort, or things they're trying to not remember or not think about, that causes these problems. And I can confidently say that unless you change the environment or the situation, the inner thoughts and feelings, then even if you manage to help someone to stop for a period of time, they'll find something else. Or they will go back, unfortunately, because the issues haven't been addressed. And another study that Johan Hari mentioned in his book, Chasing the Scream, was about Portugal. There was a huge problem with drugs in Portugal in 2000, and the government tried all kinds of punishments and imprisonment to try and tackle the issue. And they continued to see rising numbers of drug users. So they decided to change how they approach this problem, and instead of shaming and criminalising drug users, they decided to use that money and to reconnect them with society. This included getting drug users back into employment of their choice, providing small loans to help them set up their own businesses, and the outcome was amazing. According to the British Journal of Criminology, drug use in Portugal went down by a massive 50%. Johan went to Portugal to talk to some of the reformed individuals that were part of that time period, and their responses were that they rediscovered their purpose, they rediscovered their bonds, they felt like they'd been given that second chance, they had a better relationship with the wider society. So this only further supports the sentiments that situations or environments can influence how people deal with addictions. And as part of the work that I do, I help people to look at what's not working, what are the benefits, and what do you want to go for next. Once we've got to the root cause, once we've done the releasing, it's like reinstalling, recreating a new life for that person. Who do they want to be? What do they want to do? So often some people like to do it really fast when we do the breakthrough program, and some people like to take it on more of a week by week, slower pace. And of course, it's got to suit the individual. So there's some things that you may like to try if you are suffering with an addiction. I'm just going to give you a few ideas here. So the first thing is somatic therapy. So that's body work therapy. Often pushed down emotions or traumatic events can turn into physical symptoms, and they can get trapped in the body, especially since the two most common responses to trauma are not flight or fight, it's freeze, or kind of like a repressed rage, displaced rage. So this then creates a disconnection between our mind and body. And some of the best ways to release these trapped emotions is by doing body work therapy. And that can be working with a therapist that guides you to go into a place you feel discomfort, scan your body, and learn, talk to these parts of your body, which I know may sound a bit far-fetched for some of you listening, but it's amazing what the body stores and holds. Memories, emotions, things like that can be stored in all these different parts of our body that need to be released. There's also other techniques that you can do simply by going for a massage or doing some exercise to shake out, to move out any trapped emotions. That can also be really good. And that's why often a lot of us love exercise. Another technique I use is called havening, which helps people to release the sting on past emotional pain, past emotional events and emotions. And it's a series of self-touch movements that I guide people through. And what it can do is it can break the circuit in the brain that goes to panic and fear and worry or anger, whatever the default emotion is. And we can just calm that down by doing some movements that help the brain get into delta waves, slow wave sleep. And this can really help to bring a sense of calm. And it's a great tool for people if they want to calm anxiety or calm things without using medication. And then there is action plans, of course. So creating yourself empowering alternatives. How can I change this behavior or this pattern and enjoy the process? How will I reward myself? How will I congratulate myself? What will I do if I'm stressed? What will I do if I feel I've worked really hard? What will I do if I feel lonely? What if I do if I feel too tired? All these different things, like come up with an action plan. Work with a friend, your partner, a coach, like make it as fun and as enjoyable as possible. Get some really good alternative replacements, a long list. I have people write a massive long list when I work with them. And then also become aware of your triggers. I love to ask people that come to me for addiction support to create a mood and addiction diary. So this is what I ask them to do, and feel free to note this down if you want to. What is the feeling before you did it? Sometimes I'll give them a list of 20 emotions to choose from. Sometimes they just come up with their own. So what is the feeling before it? Or feelings, there may be a few. What time of day is it? What did you say to yourself before? How do you feel after? Was anyone else with you or were you alone? And this helps to see the triggers to repetitive behaviours, whether it's emotional eating or drinking or whatever it is. By making yourself aware of exactly what triggers you, you're able to plan a different response. For example, talking to a friend, exercise, new hobby, meditation, power nap, support network. This can make it a lot more easier to make transitions. So I hope this has been in some way useful to you. I know that there are many people around the world who are suffering right now because they have developed a habit. Sometimes they had it for a long time. Sometimes it's come with COVID and they feel ashamed. They feel weak-willed. They feel not good enough. Why can't I change this? Why am I doing this to myself? Why do I say I'm not going to do this and then the next day I do exactly the same thing? And they just really don't understand themselves. And it can take over your life. It can take over your relationship. And so getting some support, if you feel that you're ready and you would like to, is a really great thing to do. And find someone that you trust, that you believe in, that believes in you, that is calm, that's kind. That's really key, finding someone that you enjoy working with if you do decide to go down that route. Or if you've got a good friend that also wants to change the habit, maybe you can support each other, or a family member. So to wrap this up, I'm just going to end with that quote from the journalist and author Jahan Hari, who summarised it perfectly. It isn't the drug that causes the harmful behaviour, it's the environment. An isolated rat will almost always become a junkie. A rat with a good life almost never will, no matter how many drugs you make available to him. As Bruce put it, he was realising that addiction isn't a disease. Addiction is an adaptation. It's not you, it's the cage you live in. So if you feel like you're in a cage right now, either inside your own head or in the way that you're living, and you would like to learn more about my support, you can go to my website, nicolabeer.com, and you can book a 20-minute intro call with me where we can discuss where you are, where you want to be. And if I feel I can help you, I'll extend an invitation for us to work together. And then at the end, you can decide, would you like to do that? And for those of you that are listening every week, thank you so much for your support. I would so appreciate it if you have enjoyed the show to leave a rating or review, because that helps the show stay more visible and hopefully helps more and more people live happier lives and have happier relationships. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Save Your Marriage with Nicola Beer. To book your free marriage strategy session today, you can visit www.nicolabeer.com, where you can also get the free marriage fixing ebook, request a topic for the show, and make a donation if the show has been of benefit to you and you want to help keep it going. We wish you an amazing love-filled day ahead.